Hey everyone, this is yours truly, Kara Warner, and thank you for tuning back into my channel where we discuss everything culture. I want to take this time out, as always, to thank everyone who's participated in commentary, those of you who have subscribed to my channel, those of you who support the growth and development of this channel. I truly appreciate all of your feedback and all of your support and your love. It really means a lot to me from the bottom of my heart. And I also want to take this time to thank the trolls. I want to encourage you to continue to troll on. Because when you come in as a troll, you have a certain assignment, and your assignment is to discourage and gaslight. But really what it happens is it has an adverse effect on me, and it really motivates me to go to the next dimension. So I really encourage all trolls, okay? Continue to troll on. We are going to discuss today why pettiness is celebrated in the Black community. Now, all of you who are listening, I am sure that you've had your share of pettiness, whether it be with a family member or a friend, group of individuals, community organizations even. Some people really just embrace and celebrate pettiness and messiness. And it's often hard to believe that as adults, we run into Black folks who thrive off of being unkind and nasty and literally obsessed with releasing toxicity into the atmosphere. And folks love to strong arm and throw their perceived weight around, okay? But the problem is that it's often at the expense of others and their livelihood. And oftentimes their esteem, to be honest with you. And there's an even deeper justification behind why some Black folks within the Black community fall subject to being petty and messy. And I want to dive right into those reasons. So the other day I was on Facebook, and there was an overabundance of posts about being a bully and pettiness and messiness and the motivation behind it and all of that. And there was one particular post that a young lady posted about being messy, and one of my acquaintances, she posted some research behind the effects of being drama filled and messy, and the correlation between being messy and early childhood trauma. And I thought that the information provided was really interesting, because a lot of times your first thought when you encounter someone who has a reputation or a running theme of being petty or messy, or even acknowledges the fact that they're petty and messy, you oftentimes believe that that's a character flaw. Like, okay, she or he, they really just on some attention seeking type ridiculousness. And a lot of times that's true, and that is still correlated with childhood trauma and that experience with whatever the trauma may have been. But when I really dissected and unpacked the information within the research article, it made me almost empathetic to petty people. And don't get me wrong, I'm not coming from a place of judgment by any stretch of the imagination, because there's been times where I've got out of character and have had bouts of pettiness and messiness myself. However, there is a distinct difference between those who operate and engage in pettiness on a repetitive scale and those whose characteristic traits are not conducive to pettiness. It's uncomfortable for them when they engage in pettiness, and they're able to self-reflect more often than those who have adopted this way of behaving, because they haven't found a healthy coping mechanism to either their traumas or their insecurities. And oftentimes what we do is we correlate pettiness and messiness with being a quote-unquote female trait, but there has been a significant amount of cases where I have seen Black men perpetuate pettiness and messiness as if it's normal. So pettiness and messiness is definitely normalized in our community from both sides, both genders, from being an adult to being a child. Nobody is exempt from having adopted these behavioral traits or characteristic traits. And what I would like to again note is that it's out of order. Let's just let's just be real, it's out of order, okay? Especially if you're a band. You shouldn't be engaging in no pettiness and messiness with women or men or otherwise, okay? It's significantly out of order. However, when we talk about mental health though, and if trauma and early childhood trauma is so heavily correlated with messiness and pettiness, we do have to consider that mental health is a possible reason behind the behavior. The article I'm referencing is authored by Dr. Bill Gordon, and it's titled Excessive Attention Seeking and Drama Addiction. And it really helps to unpack the motivation behind why some of us are essentially obsessed with messy and petty behavior, specifically those within the Black community. And it also suggests that drama and attention seeking is the brain's response to developmental trauma caused by neglect and inadequate attention. And so when you're reared in an environment of neglect and or trauma, which may even happen at any stage of development, many traumas take place outside of early childhood. For instance, the death of a parent can take place at any stage of development, and the brain is then challenged to relearn how to survive and cope. And on more of a macro level, we as a group of people, Black people, have been dehumanized. We have experienced much violence and racism, and we haven't properly healed from our past. And so it really does make sense to me after reviewing this article that the way in which we engage with one another and how we express communication with one another is very hostile because we haven't healed, and we don't even know how to even begin to heal because we're so divided. And have you ever realized that every topic of discussion, I mean, every single topic of any type of discussion that we ever try to hold, we are at odds with one another. We can never come to a clear compromise. It's always them versus us in our own communities. And so that in itself has proved that we don't know how to communicate or engage or to support one another. Our traumas stay keeping us at odds, okay, with one another. And this attention-seeking, drama-filled pettiness obsession is holding us back from implementing real change in our communities. Dr. Gordon also suggests that our brains correlate lack of attention to danger, and the brain also identifies lack of attention as a threat. So many of us, through familial units and or community, have experienced the desire to receive the most basic level of attention. I mean, everybody requires attention. That is a basic need. And being petty and drama-filled provides attention, whether that's positive or negative. But from a hormonal perspective, according to Dr. Gordon, drama causes a gland in our brain, and we've all probably heard of this gland, the pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus. They both correspond with one another to release a chemical called endorphins. And endorphins suppresses pain and induces pleasure. Endorphins are released when one is addicted to drugs or even just using drugs for a moment. So the endorphins uses the same mechanics in the brain as opiates. So it's possible for folks to become addicted to drama, and it sounds humorous, but this is scientific research. It does become addicted. People can become addicted to drama, such as in the same manner as those who become addicted to drugs or alcohol or any other type of addiction. So basically, there are some folks who literally use drama as their drug of choice. And again, this is a non-judgment zone. I know that I have personally had my share of initiating drama, but I think the difference between some of us is that, well, as we learn, there are those who are addicted to drama and pettiness and messiness and promote it extremely heavily. And then there's those who like to steer far away from the drama, away from the pettiness and the messiness, and really don't receive much gratification from it at all. So what happens when we have a community of people on very extreme sides of the spectrum. How do we bridge the gap? How do we come together? How do we come to some type of resolve so that we can move forward in solidarity and unity and really resume in implementing true change in our communities? Because there's really no way that we can really maximize our talents and our gifts and the purpose that we all can instill within the realm of our communities without working together. And we have to somehow learn how to cope with our traumas. And everybody's been traumatized, every last one of us, as individuals and as collectives. So this can't continue to be the reason why behaviors are so non-conducive to working in solidarity. I mean, we have to be held accountable. Everybody has to be held accountable. So I understand that trauma has taken place. I understand that maybe folks don't have healthy coping mechanisms. And I do understand that sometimes it's very difficult for you to self-reflect and have those moments of examination and say to yourself, you know what, this ain't cool. I'm not behaving as an adult, essentially. I'm not, me talking about people and putting them on blast on social media and things like that. This is very childlike. Okay. And it's very difficult to have those conversations with yourself. But at some point, we have to identify the nature of confusion and coercion and confliction. And, how do people sleep at night when they're conjuring up so much? I don't get it. But I do have more of an empathy-based understanding of why some folks really thrive on drama. Dr. Gordon concludes the article by suggesting that there's no real way of fixing, quote unquote, the hardwiring of your brain after a traumatic experience has taken place. So it's really important for you to be honest with yourself about your behavior and the adverse effects of trauma. If you're unable to, what Dr. Gordon suggests is, and I totally agree with him, but unfortunately not everybody has caring individuals and honest individuals in their lives, but he does suggest that one of the ways to fix the behavior is to have people in your life who's going to give you the unadulterated truth about who you are and how you respond. And if, a lot of people unfortunately, a lot of people just don't have those type of people in their life. They have yes people in their life. You're going to say yes to everything that this person is saying and doing as if it's okay. And you've essentially normalized their behavior because you have become an accessory to it. We have to be able to identify the flaws within ourselves. And when so many people are telling you, if there's an overabundance of people telling you, hey, you might want to redirect this, homie, like it might be something to really gather. It might be something to examine. It might be something that you really need to try to redirect and change. So I do want to note that I'm not a mental health practitioner. I do have graduate level education on family life, crisis, and trauma. So I am very familiar with a lot of the terms and the content and the context of Dr. Gordon's research. I just thought that it was really interesting that pettiness and messiness and drama can be associated with trauma. So with that being said, I'm going to close out. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed the segment. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And without further ado, again, we're going to close out, and you all have an amazing weekend. Thank you for joining.